Hello, I'm Dr. Phil Busey. This brief introduction to drawing plants is for students of plant identification. When we illustrate plants, such as this Ravina humulus, which I drew, we remember features such as the smooth or entire margins of the leaves, the fact that they're simple, not compound, and that they are arranged alternate. When I, in 1975, published a treatment of the Elephantopinae, which is a subtribe of the Vernonii in the Asteraceae, I wanted to make sure that this species was illustrated, Elephantopus mollis. This specimen on the left in the Missouri Botanical Garden herbarium was my specimen number 329, which I collected at Rio Mendoza in 1973. That's north of Gamboa. And I asked botanical illustrator R.J. White to draw it for me for my publication. There you can see his attempt to provide a lifelike appearance to the plant. The illustration was not sufficient to show the pubescence on the underside of the leaves because the illustration favored the venation structure. There was another detail that I thought was important, and that was the structure of the flowering parts. So I illustrated the floret, item B in the lower right, of Elephantopus mollis, and I also illustrated the mature fruit, or the achene, which is item C up above, showing that there are stiff bristles for a pappus, and they are fewer than 10, which would be a dividing line between this species and another species. It was very important for me, once I understood it, to include item D, which is the capitulum, or the head of this species. Now, what looks like a head on the illustration below is actually a cluster of individual heads. D, as you can see, has the characteristic of a head of the sunflower family.
Hello, I'm Dr. Phil Busey. The class is plant identification. To learn how to identify plants, we should make a record. That will also help us remember them. One way to take a record is a pressed dried specimen. Another would be a sketch. Another would be a photograph. Because we are at the mercy of the wind and the lighting, I prefer to use a single lens reflex camera that will give me the greatest control through the optics of the external conditions. A modern smartphone is also very effective. A modern smartphone typically will automatically geotag a photograph to a particular location, latitude and longitude, and it will also give the date and time. By taking a photograph with a ruler, I have a reference point on the size of the plant parts, and by including a gray card, I have some control over the lighting conditions. Should I need to adjust this photograph later with an image editor, I have a reference point. To provide a more accurate location, I can also use a handheld GPS unit, such as this Garmin, to record the waypoint, latitude, and longitude. And now, I think we're ready to take a sample. To do that, I want to make sure I'm not collecting an endangered species, and I want to take a reasonable amount of plant material for purposes of sketching later. I will not need to put this in an herbarium. So as long as I get several of the leaves, the flowers, and the fruits, I'll have a good start. So I'm just going to go down this far. And so there's how to collect and record a plant for identification. Thank you.
In order to draw plants, it's important to be fairly well organized, have a number of black pencils sharpened ahead of time if you choose to use pencils and paper, and lay out your material, have a good lighting and a good clean surface to work on. Let's begin. This is 32 minutes, but I've shrunk it considerably so you can see me adding leaves, putting veins in leaves, making mistakes and making erasures, using a little card so I don't smear, and there we are. There's me trying not to smear. And there's the plant on the right and the illustration on the left. Go to it. Oh, don't forget to document. Use a label such as this to say where you got it, when you got it, what it is, and something about it. Good. And if we can attach that information to your illustration, either digitally or in some other way, it would be helpful. Take care.